Greetings from the Wynn poker room, technically the Encore, but we all refer to it as the... It's a Monday night in Las Vegas, Nevada. I've got $3,000 that I don't know what else to do with, so I decide to buy into a poker game. Of course, I bought into a poker game. So let's check out some hands from the Wynn from tonight's session. Straddle is on, and the action gets underway in this hand pretty interesting and pretty quickly. The hijack opens for $50. We are on the button looking down at two red fives. Very standard call, and the player in the straddle makes the call as well. Through is to a flop of 7-4-3 with two spades. Straddler checks, and the player in the hijack continues, and not for a small amount. He bets $110. Right away, that's pretty interesting because the initial raiser is betting into two players. He's not down betting, and he's betting into a board that should connect with the pre-flop callers perhaps a little bit more often than the pre-flop raiser. This player in the hijack is a good player. He's going to be aware of these things. He's not just randomly firing away in this spot. He is either, in my opinion, often going to have perhaps overpairs, although I would think that those holdings might not just blast away versus two opponents on this kind of a board. He's going to have flush draws and he's going to have sets, I think. So if he doesn't have overpairs all that often, I don't know if it makes too much sense to go ahead and raise with our pocket fives, turning them into a bluff or a semi-bluff. So I go ahead and put in the call on the button, and the player in the straddle gets out of the way. Turn is an offsuit jack, and the player in the hijack does not stop with his aggression, this time firing out for $300. Once again, these are no small wagers, and I don't think my opponent is going to have the overpairs all that often. I think he's going to be weighted to very strong hands, very strong made hands, and very strong draws. I go ahead and put in the call here once more on the turn and see what develops, and the river card is very interesting. It's a 6 of spades, which completes that front door flush draw and now puts 4 to a straight on the board and gives us the straight. Things continue to develop. Interestingly, my opponent does not stop firing here on the river, fires out for a very large wager, $1,200, and he checks his cards real quickly before firing out. Now, oftentimes, I think that's going to be a bit of a tell. I think players in this kind of a spot will often use the single nut flush card holding to turn this hand and go for it with the bluff. Say my opponent had pocket aces, and he has the ace of spades here. I think it's a reasonable situation to go ahead and turn that hand into a bluff. That being said, as mentioned, I don't think my opponent is going to have those holdings all that often, firing away on a pretty wet and connected board into two opponents on the flop, again into an opponent on the turn. It seems like he's going to have the flush, aka the nut flush here, a fair amount of the time. Of course, he's not going to be doing this with sets now on the river. And the only other possible holding, I think, would be a hand like pocket aces with the ace of spades. I think he can have ace king suited, I think he'd have ace queen suited, ace jack suited, ace 10 suited. We are losing to all of those hands. So I'm going to do something that might look a little bit surprising, but I'm going to go ahead and toss my red pocket fives into the muck, perhaps leaning on a lot of pot limit Omaha play that I've been enjoying as of late. My straight does not feel like a very strong hand here. Just going to go ahead, toss that one into the muck, and unfortunately, we do not get to have any closure in this spot because my opponent does not show us. He's just going to go ahead and drag the pot and send his cards face down. Definitely an interesting one there to start things off this evening. And I will be questioning whether that was a good fold for a while, but I am pretty confident and feel pretty good about it. Anyway, poker continues. We move over to the first must-move main game. So there's 3 games going here at the Wynn tonight. There is a must-move, there is a must-move, and there is a main game. So we make it over to the second table, and this hand develops right away. I add on an additional $1,000 after that debacle of a hand and some other hands that I had lost. So I'm now in for $4,000 before we see a raise from the player in the cutoff, who makes it $60 to go. We look down at the king 7 of diamonds here on the button. Could do any number of things. We could, of course, fold. Perhaps we could call, defend the button, or we could get extra spicy and go ahead and put in the 3-bet. I choose that latter option. Going for the aggressive route, I go ahead and 3-bet this one up to $200, because why not? The player in the small blind cold calls. Interesting things developing here at the Wynn. The initial raiser and all other players get out of the way, and we are going heads up to a flop. Looking for some connection here, and we find a little bit of it. It comes down 8-7-4 with 2 hearts. We flop ourselves a pair, but it is not exactly that strong of a holding where I want to go ahead and continue to bloat this pot. So when my opponent checks it, I'm just going to check it back. Turn is an offsuit deuce, and now my opponent leads out for $110. I think that is a super fair price. I'm going to go ahead and make the call. We go heads up to a river, and that river looks pretty favorable to me. It's an offsuit king, giving us 2 pair now. My opponent does not continue firing here on this river. He checks it over to me, and of course we're going for value. I slide out a wager of $320, and my opponent thinks about it before deciding to let it go. So no more value with our king 7 adventure here, but we do win some money, claw back some of the losses with the king 7 of diamonds. All right, next hand is an absolute doozy, I promise you that. Still playing at 5, 10, 20 here, and there's an early position raise up to $50. We look down at pocket 6s. I'm gonna go ahead and make the call here, of course, and the player on my left, who had cold called that last hand previously, he goes ahead and makes the call. So the 3 of us off to a flop that comes down looking pretty favorable for these pocket 6s. Ace, 6, 7 with 2 spades. We flop bottom set here when the initial raiser leads out for a $50 wager. I'm going to take a non-conventional line here. For that continuation bet sizing, we could definitely find a raise. But having seen some things on this table, the player on my left doing some non-conventional things himself, I think I'd like to keep him in this pot. See if I can entice him in, and I go ahead and flat call. We find some good news right away when that player goes ahead and raises up to $150. Back over to the initial raiser and C-better, who makes the call. Now, I think the desired action is pretty clear, because we don't want to just go ahead and flat call here. There's multiple draws available, straight and flush draws available on this board, lots of cards that could come that could kill action versus a hand like ace 7 or ace king. We're going to go ahead and put in the back raise here. I make it $550 to go, 3-betting the flop. Player on my left doesn't waste too much time. He goes ahead and makes the call before the initial raiser now goes ahead after surveying the situation and jams all in for about $2,900. I told you guys this was going to be a spicy one. So we are going to have a pretty straightforward decision here. I'm going to feign decision, act like I'm thinking about it, because I don't want to dissuade the player on my left from coming into this pot, if at all possible. If my opponent in early position who raised this pot to begin with happens to have pocket aces or pocket 7s, we're never getting away from this hand being somewhere around $3,000 effective in a 5, 10, 20 game. Of course, we're never folding. We are going to be continuing, and if we somehow are up against a better hand, so be it. So after feigning my thinking and decision making, I'm going to go ahead and toss in the call. And the player on my left thinks for a little bit before deciding to call as well. So we have ourselves a massive pot here, somewhere in the neighborhood of $9,000, perhaps a little more. Haven't done the exact math, but it is a large one. So 3 of us off to see a run out, and there's no discussion about running it twice. We are going one time in a massive pot here, and the turn is not exactly what we have in mind. As far as favorable cards, it is the king of spades, which puts the 3rd spade on board. The river is also an interesting one in the form of an offsuit ace. So we end up with 6s full of aces here. I go ahead, announce my hand, because these guys don't seem too proud of it, and it turns out we are up against the ace queen of spades from the early position player and the 5-4 of spades from the player on my left. So what an action flop this ends up being. Bottom set versus top pair plus nut flush draw versus an open-ended straight flush draw. And it is maximum drama. We didn't realize it because we didn't flip the cards over until the end, but it is maximum drama. The flush comes in on the turn, the full house comes in on the river to bring this one home for the good guys. Of course, that's us. You know, we're the good guys. Drag in a casual $9,000+ pot here at the Wynn. Love to see it.
275.
All right, it is too early to go ahead and hit and run. We're going to have to play some more poker here. Let's do it. We're feeling good. It feels great to drag in that pot. Let's get in the mix once again. Now, no straddle on in this hand, playing 5-10, looking down at pocket fours on the button. Action folds to me, and I make it $30 to go. That same player on my direct left, he is now in the small blind. He makes the call, and the big blind gets out of the way. Flop is king, queen, 3 with 2 hearts. That's not a great flop for our hand. My opponent checks. I'm just going to check this one back. Turn is a 9 of hearts, getting worse and worse. My opponent checks. I check it back as well. River is the ace of hearts, putting 4 to a flush on board. Endless overcards to our pocket pair. Don't think these pocket fours are going to win at showdown. So when my opponent checks it to me once again, let's toss in a $30 bluff. See if we can get this one through, and it most certainly cannot get through. My opponent snap calls. I very proudly turn over my pocket fours, and my opponent shows us ace 6 offsuit, no heart. So there is some non-believers in the mix here, and there is some action to be found on a Monday night here at the Wynn. All right, straddle is back on thanks to yours truly. Playing 5, 10, 20 here. I'm in the straddle spot. Player in the under the gun spot limps in, folds all the way around to the player in the big blind who completes the $20, and we look down at pocket jacks. Of course, we're raising. I go ahead and make it $120 to go over these 2 limpers. Those 2 limpers make the call. So heading 3 ways to a flop.
Andrew,
what's going on, man?
how are you?
Good.
I'm a fan.
You want to be in the video?
Yes, sir.
There you go. What's your name?
Samuel.
Samuel from?
Mexico, Chihuahua.
Love it. I love Mexico. Big fan.
Yes, sir.
Good to meet you.
Good to meet you, sir. Kind of nervous right now.
What's happening?
Nothing. Just finished a 2-5 game.
All right. How'd it go?
Played 10 hours almost, and only won 150.
Proper session, but better than losing.
Right? Yeah.
There you go.
Can we take a selfie?
Sure, man. Let's do it. All
All
right.
right. Thank you. Appreciate
Meeting
it.
you.
Good meeting you.
King 9-5 rainbow, could be better, could be worse, just 1 overcard to our pocket jacks. Playing the big line checks, we could check it, being 3 ways here, definitely benefit from some protection, so it's a very close decision. I decided to fire out a wager. I don't think these guys are going to have too many kings in their limp calling range pre-flop. Make it $120 to go. Player in the under the gun spot, he goes ahead and makes the call, and the player in the big blind also makes the call. Still 3 ways to a turn card, which is an ace. Once again, pretty interesting spot. It's probably pretty close between turning our pocket jacks into a bluff or just checking versus 2 opponents. I decided to take that latter route after the big blind checks it to me. I check it, and the player in the under the gun spot checks it as well. River's a 10, big blind checks. Once again, we could consider turning these jacks into a bluff, considering we should have the strongest hands here, and we also block the strongest hands in the form of the Broadway straight. But I just decided to check it, hoping to get to showdown, and that is what happens. Player in the under the gun spot checks. No one wants to roll over their cards, it seems, so I announce a pair. Once again, nobody turns their cards over. I show it down, and the pocket jacks are good on this board. Things looking up here at the Wynn. Things are working out after that early hand that did not go our way. Some other hands that very much do go our way. All right, no straddle on in this hand, just playing 5-10. Action over to us in middle position, looking down at the 9-8 of spades. Such a sexy holding. We're going to go ahead and raise this one up to $30. Players in the low jack and big blind positions, they agree to the price. They make the call, and we're going 3 ways to a flop. Ace, ace 5 with 2 spades. Pretty interesting because A, we flop a flush draw, and B, we can represent strong hands on a double ace board. Don't have to bet too big here. We can get away with some cheap bluffs occasionally. I bet $20 after the big blind checks it. The player on my left, who is now a different player from previous hands, that player is having none of it. He goes ahead and assembles a raise, makes it $70 to go over to the big blind, who puts in the cold call. So I think the jig is up here. Now the question is, do we want to continue with our flush draw when it appears almost certainly that one, if not both of these players have an ace? I decide the answer is I don't think so. I don't think we want to draw to a flush when our opponents almost certainly have trips in their hand, if not better already. I decided to send the 9-8 of spades into the muck, but I am an interested observer in this hand as it continues. The turn is an offsuit king. The player in the big blind checks. Low jack bets $100, and this time the player in the big blind puts out a raise of $340. The player in the low jack, he's got himself about $1,000 total. He decides now is a good time to send all of it into the middle. Raises all in for $1,000. Player in the big blind hesitates briefly before making the call, And the hands are revealed. Low jack has ace king somehow, no 3-bet. Player in the big blind has ace jack. That ace jack is in a world of hurt here until the river comes another king. So these guys are going to chop up my money, my $20 that I c-bet on the flop, and my $30 that I raised pre-flop. But happy that we got away from it pretty quickly. And yeah, I think I like my line here, getting away pretty cheap. All right, that $20 straddle is back on in this hand, 5, 10, 20. And in this hand, we see an early position raise up to $60. That initial raiser is a good player, and often when that is the case, and I have a hand that is right on the cusp between flatting and 3-betting, I won't take the aggressive route quite as often as I might versus some other players. I'll take the passive route, I'll play in position, and just try and navigate post-flop. So when I look down at Queen 10 of hearts, that is such a hand that could be right on the borderline between putting in a 3-bet, which I would often do with my suited Broadway holdings, or just flat calling and playing in position as mentioned. I make the call, the player in the hijack makes the call before the player in the cutoff. That player wants to take the aggressive route. He goes ahead and 3-bets up to $220, which is not really that big of a sizing here. Versus a raise and 2 callers, I would expect that 3-bet to be significantly larger. So when the initial raiser gets out of the way, I'm feeling pretty incentivized to go ahead and make the call. We can make a royal flush, we can make a straight flush, we can make quads, we can make trips, we can make all sorts of holdings. I call, and the player on my left gets out of the way. So, heads up to a flop. 7, 6, deuce, rainbow. I kind of want to talk to a manager because this flop seems out of order. I check it. My opponent also decides to check it back. So we get a free card, which once again does not help us. It is an offsuit jack. I check it. My opponent checks it back. We're looking to dodge some high cards here to see if we can find a bluff opportunity. And I think that opportunity arrives when the river is a 5. Queen high is not going to win at showdown. Tune in for more tips. I'm going to go ahead, put out a wager. Don't want to go too small here. Don't want to make it too easy to allow my opponent to pick us off. So I fire out for $250 here on the river. And that wager gets the job done pretty quickly. My opponent goes ahead and folds what is almost certainly an ace-king or an ace-queen suited type of a holding. Obviously happy with the result here. Don't think calling 3-bets with Queen 10 suited out of position is going to generate endless profit, but get the job done here thanks to a favorable run out that is not all that favorable, but it looked favorable. And let's go to the next hand. All right, 5, 10, 20, straddle back on in this hand. We look down at ace, queen, offsuit, the offsuit variety from early position. Gonna go ahead and make it $50, of course. Player on my direct left, under the gun 1, he makes the call. Player in the hijack makes the call. That makes 3 of us heading to a flop that comes down 4, 4, 4. We're typically gonna have the best hands here, aside from quads maybe. Then again, not sure how many 4x hands my opponents are going to have anyway. So we're going to have aces, kings, queens, jacks, 10s. My opponent's not putting in a 3-bet pre-flop, means that they'll basically never have those hands. So definitely want to go ahead and put in a c-bet here and make it $50. I would do this if I had pocket aces because I want to keep in all worse hands. Both players call this wager, which is not all that unexpected as mentioned, and we go 3 ways to a turn card. Turn is kind of interesting. It's a king, which generally would be good for my range, although I would expect these guys to go ahead and float my small c-bet. With a hand like king, queen, king, jack suited, getting a very fair price on the flop, I think they can definitely find some floats. So I'm going to go ahead and check it and see what happens here. If my opponents do happen to hit this card, then we only have 1 overcard now. So I check and see what happens, and what happens is that both of these guys check behind me. So off to a river card, and that river card is a jack. So with 2 high cards coming out on turn and river, I think we want to go ahead and try and stab here, try and get some middling pocket pairs such as 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s maybe, 10s maybe. See if we can fold out those exact holdings. We're not going to fold out quads. That I am almost certain. No, I'm definitely certain of that. But I think we can fold out some other holdings. Let's try it. I bet $150 here. Don't think we need to go too big. Once again, making it look like I'm going for value with a hand like ace, king, king, queen, king, jack, king, 10, maybe even the odd ace, jack. After the turn checks through, perhaps we can go for value with a jack as well. Player on my left, he goes ahead and gets out of the way. That is good news. 1 man to beat now, and that player goes into the tank. We are thinking fold thoughts. We are trying to Jedi mind trick this man, and he is not having it. He finally makes the call after much deliberation. We show the ace queen. That's not going to win because my opponent has pocket 7s. He makes a good call. He figures life out. Life is easy. Poker is easy for this man. Send that man the pot. Congratulations, sir. That, my friends, is a poker session on a Monday night in Las Vegas here at the Wynn. As mentioned, we get into this game for $4,000, adding on $1K to the initial $3,000 buy-in. We cash out of this game for $8,555 for an enjoyable profit of $4,555. I say enjoyable, A, because that's a good Monday. That's a good Monday night. B, things have been going well in live poker. I mentioned that in the last video. The live poker train has been going well as of late. We got the straddles going over here at the Wynn, no problem. I posted a poll on Twitter. There's the results right there. Are these things generally good, bad for the game? Sometimes good, sometimes bad. I was just generally curious to see what you guys think. And as expected, basically very few people think that they're bad for the game. There's some people that don't really like some of the things, maybe they like the stand-up game and they don't like straddling, or maybe they like straddling and they don't like bomb pots. So there was, some mix in there. But it's just interesting, the different culture in poker games that you can find depending on your location. Just an interesting little story time there that doesn't really have too much of a conclusion. Just sharing my experiences, as I often do, here on the Andrew Neeme channel. If you enjoyed hearing about these experiences, consider the subscribe button. It's free. Only half of you that are watching this are subscribed, so I would love it if you would do that. All right, guys. More experiences soon.